Chosen ones, it's all coming together for you, but not in the way you wanted. A quiet unraveling is taking place around your life right now, and it carries more authority than anything that has tried to confine you before. What once felt clouded by false labels, distorted thinking, and limitation is now being cleared away by a hand that overlooks nothing and corrects every misperception. Nothing you endured was meaningless. Nothing you carried was ignored, and nothing has fallen outside the intention I have been establishing over you from the beginning. Even in the moments when confusion blurred your sight, there was a precise work happening beneath it all, realigning your vision with truth and restoring clarity with purpose and care. You are not restricted. You are not misled, and you are not overlooked. Everything is being repositioned under my authority in a way that will soon become undeniable, and your spirit will recognize that this shift was always appointed for you. Type 777 if you trust Jesus. There were seasons when you wrestled with inner weight that no one around you could fully perceive, and still you kept advancing with a steady resolve that did not originate from your own strength. That endurance was imparted within you by my hand, sustaining you even in moments when you felt isolated and unseen. Every restraint you held, every time you pressed forward when surrender seemed easier, has been witnessed and preserved with intention. You were being refined, not rejected. You were being equipped, not forsaken. The process felt extended because what I have appointed for you carries significance, and the foundation had to be established deeply so that what is now unfolding can stand firm in your life. Take a moment and gently support this by liking the video and subscribing to this channel, as it helps this reach someone who needs the same comfort today. I am stripping away the false illusions and misconceptions that have limited your vision, for I am capable of far more than you have imagined. You received a word, a real one, not something you manufactured out of desperation or talked yourself into at a conference. A specific promise about the business, the ministry, the marriage, the child, the position, and you have been holding it so long the edges are worn soft. You have been faithful. You have been patient. And I have not moved. Not in the way you can see. Not in the way you can report back to anyone. Let me be clear about what has been happening. I have been doing surgery without anesthesia. Not because I enjoy your pain, but because what I am building in you cannot be built in comfort. The version of you that received the promise was not the version capable of carrying what the promise actually costs. You wanted the outcome. I needed to rebuild the person. I am not sentimental about this. I love you too much to be soft with you. Every closed door was a closed door for a reason I will not always explain. Every person who moved ahead of you while you stood still, that was not injustice. That was protection from a version of the promise that would have destroyed you. I have watched you call my precision cruelty. I have watched you dress up your frustration as intercession. I know the difference. Here is what I need you to understand about the waiting. It was not empty. I was in it, working on the parts of you that you do not post about. The pride underneath the humility, the control underneath the surrender, the audience you were building the promise for before you were building it for me. I saw all of it. I stayed anyway, and I kept building anyway. The promise has not expired. I do not issue words and then forget them. What I said, I said. What I started, I finish. But you are not getting the version you imagined. You are getting something more accurate, built on a foundation I constructed while you were busy being confused about my silence. It is coming together, not gently, not on schedule, exactly on time. As you relinquish the burden of opinion and constant classification, you will find my peace acting as an umpire in your heart to decide with finality every matter of concern. This is your hour to move into the jurisdiction of heaven, where lack disappears and the deep treasuries of my favor fill every deficit. But I need to tell you what relinquishing actually costs, because you have been reading that word as if it means relaxing, as if it means settling into something comfortable, finally exhaling, finally arriving at a place where the noise stops and the clarity comes easy. That is not what I said. Relinquishing is not rest. Relinquishing is amputation. You have built an entire internal infrastructure around your opinions, about what should have happened by now, about who was supposed to help you and didn't, about which version of the promise was the right version, about what my silence meant, what the delay proved, what the closed doors confirmed. You have been classifying everything. This is a sign, this is a setback, this is God, this is the enemy, and that constant classification has become the loudest voice in the room, louder than mine, and I am asking you to put it down, not because your pain was wrong, not because the things you observed weren't real, but because the umpire cannot do its work while you are already calling the plays. My peace, the kind that passes understanding, which means it will not make sense to your analytical mind, which means it will arrive before the evidence does. That peace has a function. It is not decorative. It is not the feeling you get after worship when the song was good. It is a judicial instrument. It rules. It settles. It closes cases you have been reopening for years, but it cannot operate inside a heart that is already full of verdicts. This is your hour, not next season, not after the breakthrough makes it easier to trust me. Now, in the middle of the unresolved, in the middle of the still waiting, in the middle of the thing that has not yet made sense, this is the hour I am designating for your movement. Jurisdiction of heaven is not a feeling, it is a territory, and territory has rules. Inside this jurisdiction, the arithmetic changes. Lack cannot survive here. Not because I will immediately fill your account or clear your calendar or restore what was taken, but because lack is a law and you are moving under a different law now. My favor operates as treasury, not as trickle. It does not drip. It does not arrive in the small, careful amounts you have learned to expect because you have been disappointed before. It fills deficits, all of them. The financial one, yes, but also the deficit of time you lost in the wrong season, the deficit of confidence that was stripped from you in public, the deficit of peace you spent trying to figure out what I was doing instead of trusting that I was doing it. Here is the tension you need to hold. I am asking you to let go of control at the exact moment the promise feels most fragile. I am asking you to stop classifying at the exact moment classification feels most necessary. I am asking you to move into jurisdiction while the ground still feels unstable. That is not cruelty. That is precision. The chosen do not get to wait until it feels safe. They move, when I say move, into territory that looks empty until they step inside it and discover I was already there, filling it, long before they arrived. It is all coming together. Every deficit, every delay, every place you ran out, filled, finally, fully. I have set before you an open door of escape, propelling you into a new territory of blessing and breakthrough that will leave the past unrecognizable. But I need to stop you before you romanticize that sentence, because you read open door and your mind immediately went to the version where you walk through it clean, bags packed, chapter closed, the past folded neatly behind you like a made bed. You imagine the new territory arriving with clarity, with confirmation, with enough visible evidence that the step forward would feel reasonable. That is not how this door works. This door does not look like an opening, not yet. To your current eyes, in your current circumstances, it looks like the thing you have been avoiding. It looks like the conversation you keep postponing. It looks like the city you dismissed. It looks like the option that seemed too small, too lateral, too unglamorous for someone who received the kind of promise you received. You walked past it 3 times already because you were looking for a door that matched the size of your expectation. I built a door that matches the size of my purpose. And the word I used was escape. Sit with that. Escape is not a triumphant word. It is an urgent one. It carries the weight of something you need to get out of. Not casually, not on a timeline you negotiate, but now, with the kind of movement that does not stop to collect everything, does not wait for everyone to understand, does not pause to manage how the exit looks to the people who watched you stay too long. Escape means the place you are leaving was never meant to hold you permanently, and you have already spent more time in it than I intended. The past you are carrying, the identity built around the waiting, the personality that developed inside the delay, the version of you that learned to be small enough to survive a season that was only supposed to be temporary. That version does not get to come through this door, not because I am discarding who you were, but because who you were was shaped by confinement, and what I am propelling you into has no ceiling. People, same timeline, just repaired, like a mechanic returning a car with the dents hammered out. That is not resurrection, that is repair. And I do not do repair work on things I have already decided to rebuild from the foundation. Resurrection means it had to die first. Completely. Not almost die, not get sick and recover, not go through a difficult season, and emerge slightly changed. Die. And what you have been grieving, the dream that stopped moving, the relationship that went cold, the joy you cannot locate anymore, no matter how many mornings you try to find it, that death was real. I am not going to minimize it by telling you it was an illusion. It happened. You lost something, and I watched you lose it, and I did not stop it. That is the part most voices will not say to you. I am saying it directly. I did not stop it, because what needed to come out of the ashes could not come out of something still living. The version of the dream you were protecting had your fingerprints all over it, your ego sewn into the fabric of it, your need for validation built into the foundation of it, your fear of insignificance driving it in directions I never authorized. I could not resurrect that version. I needed the fire to burn away everything that was yours, so what rises is entirely mine. And beauty from ashes is not a gentle process. Ashes are what remain after something has been completely consumed. You are standing in the residue of a thing that no longer exists in its original form, and I am telling you that is exactly the raw material I work with. Not potential, not possibility. Ashes. The stuff everyone else has already written off. The stuff you stopped showing people because there was nothing left to show. By the force of my will. Not by your recovery. Not by your resilience, not by your ability to stay positive or speak the right declarations or find the right community. My will is the operative force here, which means this resurrection is not contingent on how well you have held yourself together during the waiting. It is not a reward for endurance. It is a sovereign act. I am doing this because I said I would, and what I said stands independent of your performance. The broken relationships I am mending, some of them will surprise you. Some will not come back the way you want them to. Some will come back completely transformed. The toxicity burned away. The dynamic rebuilt on ground neither of you has stood on before. And some of the mending will not look like reunion. It will look like release. A peace that finally settles over something you carried for years. Not because it was restored, but because I closed it properly so it no longer bleeds, and your joy, the full measure of it. Not the managed version you have been performing, not the grateful version you put on for people who need to see you okay. The real thing, unguarded, unearned, unafraid. It is coming back. You are a king and a priest in my domain, ordained to conquer every day as you enforce the mandates of my kingdom. But you have been living like neither. You have been living like a petitioner, standing at the edge of what I have already given you, asking permission to enter rooms you were ordained to govern. You have been apologizing for taking up space in territories I assigned to your name before you were born. You have been negotiating with opposition that has no legal authority over you, spending energy on battles that were already won, losing sleep over verdicts that were already overturned in a courtroom you have not learned to operate in yet. That ends now, not gradually. Now. King is not a title for your best days. It is a jurisdiction. It does not activate when you feel confident, when the numbers are good, when the people around you finally recognize what I placed in you. It is operational on your worst morning, in your most humiliating season, in the middle of the circumstance that makes the title feel like a cruel joke, especially then, because a king who only rules when conditions are favorable is not a king. He is a passenger wearing a crown and priest. You have misread that too. Priest means you carry access. You walk into the weight of impossible situations, and you bring the atmosphere of heaven into them, not because you feel anointed, not because the worship was good this morning, but because that is your function. You were built for intersection, the place where the human problem meets the divine answer. That is your post. You do not get to abandon it because the problem is bigger than you expected. Conquer every day. Not every milestone, not every breakthrough moment, every ordinary, resistant, unglamorous day that asks you whether you still believe what I said about you. The mandates of my kingdom are not suggestions you enforce when it is convenient. They are commands with your name attached, decrees that require a body, a voice, a person willing to show up in the natural and act like heaven is real. You are that person, not because you earned it, because I ordained it. Now walk like it. Do not be concerned with definitions or the evaluations of men, for I am the one opening doors that no man can shut. Stand up in your destiny, for my dunamis power is revitalizing your mind and body to walk in total victory. But I know what you have been doing. You have been refreshing the wrong feed. Not social media, something more dangerous than that. You have been constantly monitoring how the people in your circle are measuring you, the ones who knew you before, the ones who watched the collapse, the ones who offered help with one hand and filed away the information with the other. You have been tracking their assessments of your progress, their silence, their revised opinion of your potential, and you have been allowing those readings to set the ceiling on what you attempt. That is the concern I am telling you to put down. Not casually, surgically, because here is what their evaluation is actually based on, a version of you that no longer exists. They are measuring a person who was still in the fire. They do not have updated information. They cannot see what I have been doing in the private hours, in the 4 a.m. wrestlings, in the moments where you had nothing left, and I rebuilt you from that exact nothing. Their data is old. Their verdict is therefore irrelevant, and you have been shrinking yourself to fit a file that was closed before your story was finished. The door I open, no man shuts. That is not poetry. That is a restraining order. The person who disqualified you does not have override authority. The institution that rejected you does not have the final signature. The industry that decided you were too late, too unconventional, too much, not enough. None of them have keys to what I have already unlocked. They can have an opinion about the door. They cannot close it. But here is the tension you need to receive. I open doors, and I also require you to walk through them while people are still telling you the door is closed. The open door does not always come with visible confirmation. Sometimes it opens in the spirit before it manifests in the natural. And the gap between those two realities is where most chosen people abort the assignment. They wait for the humans to agree before they move. I am telling you to move before the agreement comes, because the agreement follows the movement, it does not precede it. Stand up. That is a physical instruction with a spiritual implication. You have been crouched under the weight of how long this has taken and what it has cost and what people think and whether it is still possible. The posture of someone who has forgotten who they are. I am not asking you to feel victorious. I am telling you to stand, because the stance is an act of warfare before it is an act of faith. My dunamis, not willpower, not discipline, not the motivational version of strength you manufacture on good days. Dunamis is explosive, resident, supernatural capacity, the same classification of power that operated at the resurrection, and I am directing it specifically at your mind and your body right now. The exhaustion that has settled into your bones, the mental fog that has made clarity feel like a luxury, the low-grade hopelessness you have normalized because you have been carrying it so long you forgot it was not yours to carry. I am revitalizing. Present tense. Active. Now. Total victory does not mean an absence of opposition. It means opposition has no final authority over your outcome. Walk in it. Not when they agree. Now. So let me leave you with what you actually need to carry out of this. Not a feeling. Not a moment of inspiration that evaporates by Thursday. A framework. Something structural. Something that holds its shape when the week gets heavy and the evidence is still thin and the old voices come back with their old measurements. Here is what I need you to remember. The promise is still active, not metaphorically, legally. What I spoke over your life has not expired because the timeline extended. It has not weakened because you have. A word from my mouth carries the same weight on day 1000 as it did on day 1. Stop treating the delay as evidence of cancellation. The delay is part of the architecture. The process is not punishment. Everything that has felt like loss, like setback, like me being absent or indifferent, that was construction. I do not waste suffering on the chosen. Every hard season had a function. You do not have to understand the function for it to have worked. The building does not need to understand the blueprint. The door is already open. You are not waiting for permission. You are not waiting for the people who disqualified you to reverse their verdict. You are not waiting for conditions to feel safe enough to move. The door is open, and it requires a body walking through it, not a mind that has finally figured out all the risks. The posture is now, not when it makes sense, not when the confirmation arrives, not when the fear subsides. The stance of a king, the access of a priest, the movement of someone who believes what I said, that posture is required now in the ordinary, unglamorous Tuesday of your life, before the breakthrough is visible. This is the framework, 4 walls that will hold you when the emotions shift. The promise is active. The process was purposeful. The door is open. The posture is now. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not the exception to what I said. You are the chosen one this was always coming together for, not in the way you wanted, in the way I planned. And my plans do not fail.